Hi, this is Ben Baxter with Accent Software. Wanted to share a follow-up video to a previous one that I had made on assembly management. So this one's going to dive a little bit more into the assembly setup and what is required behind the scenes. So the first place I'm going to go is the assembly setup. And inside of assembly setup, there's not a lot of choices, so it's mainly the numbering series that you want. You do need to have 3 separate number series so that the number changes as it moves between the statuses. You don't have to use assembly quotes, but orders and posted assembly orders are the 2 big ones to focus on. Besides just the number series, you do have some options up at the top, the stockout warning. If you don't want the system to pop up the little blue bar message about whether inventory is available or not, if you keep a very low inventory and you order a lot of parts for what you're putting together, you'll probably want to turn this off. If you don't run a low inventory and you usually stock everything, you want to have this turned on because if there's a stockout warning, you want to know about it. And so that's something that you can choose based on your inventory structure. Something else is the dimensions for the assembly order and the assembly line, so the components. You can either have it pull from the assembly order header, so whatever you assign on the assembly order header will transfer to the assembly lines, or you can have it based on the item and resource cards that you use in those component lines. And we'll discuss that as we get to the assembly BOM structure. The default location for orders, I have mine blank, and that's because I demo with a lot of different environments, so multiple locations. If you only run one location and you create your assembly orders manually, this is a great field to fill in because then it defaults that location to the order and you don't have to think about it. If you're running multiple locations and they're run through a planning process, then this should be blank because the planning process will pick up the demand location and assign that to the assembly order so that it produces in the location that it's needed. The last choice in the general section is the copy comments when posting. I like to have this turned on, personal preference. It's whatever you put in the comment sections will move to the posted document. That seems to just make sense. But if you want to really restrict the amount of usage and data that you use up in your environment, you can always turn that off. The last choice down here at the bottom is the create movements automatically. I like to always have this turned on so that the system can make the adjustments and movements behind the scenes. It will create them so that they can be processed by a person. So it's not doing the movements by itself, but it will create the documentation that follows that. So that's the assembly setup. Again, not a lot of choices, hopefully something pretty easy to digest. So next we're going to go to the items themselves, and I have 2 from my previous example that we'll take a look at. One is an assemble to stock, the other is assemble to order. There's very little difference between these 2. On the item itself, you have your general information about the item. And then if you come down, one of the first decisions you'll want to make is your costing method. I have mine set to standard. I am okay with FIFO as well because you're dealing with a lot of material and it's not a production process, so standard's not always your best option. That's just what defaulted in when I selected the template that I used to create it. But FIFO is generally a really good choice for assembly management. The other would be specific. If what I'm putting together is serialized, then that might be a good option for you as well to make sure that you have the very specific cost of that production into that assembled item. All right, moving on is the replenishment. This is the one that matters the most for the item. Your replenishment system needs to be set to assembly. Now I am on the item card. If this is a stock keeping unit, you have the same option available for the location specific build. And so assembly is the choice that you need to make. And what that does is then it starts to make the assembly policy take effect. And so in this case, I have assemble to stock. The other one is assemble to order. I have 2 items set up, one of each. Stock means that I build the assembly orders separate from the sales orders. Assemble to order means that they get created automatically by the sales process. So I cover that in my other video. Go look at the assembly order process video. so that you can see the difference between those two. The last piece of setup for assembly management is the assembly BOM. When you start with this item, if it's brand new, you're adding it to your system, this is going to say no. Okay, and you're going to start wondering, well, how do I get it to say yes? Simply clicking on it will drill you into the assembly BOM list for that item. You don't need to go hunting through the menu while the option is there. I always find the single click being the easiest access. And then you'll simply want to edit the list at the top, and then you can add additional material, so items, or resources. Now there is no routing like you do have with production, so you're adding your labor time, your production time through resources, and nobody's actually clocking in and out. So this is just a cost factor that I want included in the cost of the build. I can change the value, so if we do less than 0.25 hours on a specific build, then I can update that to be 0.15 or 0.5 if we do really bad. You have that control over the resource time on the actual assembly order itself. You can have nested assembly orders, so you do see a list that says assembly BOM and then a yes or no. Be aware, if you have an assemble to order nested within another assemble to order, it does not create the second assemble to order, so the child sub-assembly. It does not create that automatically when you add the sales line. So it will create the first level automatically. You do have to then go and create the assemble to order sub component for that particular build. While it is capable to nest them, they don't auto create all of the levels automatically with assemble to order. So just be aware of that little nuance. Otherwise, assemble to order is a great policy if I'm building it on the fly. If I build it ahead of time and box it up and keep it on a shelf, assemble to stock is the way to go. And that's it. That is the setup that you need to know in order to start processing information with the assembly management within Business Central. If you have any questions on assembly management or any part of Business Central, please reach out to our Accent Software support team. We would love to help you better utilize your software and help answer your questions.